When my pal, celebrity divorce lawyer Christopher Melcher wants to rant on something, oh, I give him the mic. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor. We've covered this case before. I honestly thought it was over, but thank you, Christopher, for bringing this back to my attention. This Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt drama is so out of hand. It's ridiculous, and I know you have some feelings on this, so welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm sorry to be absent for so long, and thanks for having me back. It's just been enormously busy here at work. So I miss, being here, but it's just been, just way too busy for me.
Dude, I get it. You have real things going on in your life. We are always grateful when you make time. But yeah, the fans were asking. So he's here. He comes in when he can. He's always open invite. And you actually brought this attention to my attention. And it's a relevant story. I've been so lost in Diddygate, which I also want your thoughts on in the future. But I want to talk about this, guys, because if you missed our previous coverage, go look. Against all the Jolie stands, which are aggressive, Christopher, they're strong and mighty and poisonous. There's a lot that she's putting out there that just really isn't right. There's a one-sided story happening. Brad Pitt doesn't seem to be doing much defense for the sake of the kids, for trying to move on. But Angelina just keeps terrorizing him, in your own words. And I want to break down. Before we get to the latest, can you give us sort of the quick recap of where we are at this point? There was a custody battle, I know, and then there was this fight for the winery, which we talked about a while back. But now she's out of nowhere during this winery thing, which we thought everything else was resolving. She's now somehow alleged to more history of abuse before that plane incident. Give us a quick rundown.
Yeah, this is a tragic story, and one that just doesn't end. It starts in 2016 when they break up, and it's when she makes these allegations that he was abusive towards her and one or more of the children on a plane that was, on the tarmac or on the ground in Los Angeles, and that was investigated, and that's what kicked this whole thing off in 2016. Here we are, 8 years later, still talking about this case. It's still not over. They're still fighting. So, yes, that started as really a custody domestic violence dispute. That's what it first was. They worked through, and a lot of custody disputes. They had to deal with the divorce, dividing their property, all those issues. And then they have this winery together, and they each had separate interests in this winery. It was, a business. And he wanted to buy her out, and he made an offer, and it appeared that she had accepted that offer. And then the next thing he knows, she's gone around and sold her half to a competitor, this Russian oligarch who also has a connection with the spirits industry, and just sold it to him. And Brad was upset and disappointed about that. Angelina just said, well, I can just sell to anybody I want. Now, maybe legally that's true, and I've looked at the paperwork, and it could have been better. Most of these business agreements will prohibit one party from selling, their interests without permission of the other partner, because you don't want to have an involuntary partner. But these papers are not that clear, and legally she may be right that she may have been able to sell it, but that doesn't make it right. And it would be like spouses going through a divorce and having a house together, and one of them just saying, well, hey, I just sold the house to, my boyfriend or a competitor, your enemy.
Yeah.
Just sold, so live in peace, go and have half your house with this other person.
Right, maybe
and
not
it's
even the best
essentially what
deal.
she did.
It's not like she was like, oh, he gave me the best money. There was a vengeful intent.
Absolutely. When that deal went down, I was commenting on, it's like, what legitimate buyer would step in and buy at 1/2 interest in a very expensive business without the other business partner's permission? Even though Angelina, let's assume for the sake of this argument that she has the absolute legal right to sell to that person, who would buy that? I wouldn't. Because you're not buying a winery, you're buying a lawsuit. No one would buy an interest in a business like this without permission of the other owner, because you're buying a dispute. And if you are going to buy that, you're going to do it at a discount, because now you have to defend yourself in a lawsuit and a really horrible business partner here, because they don't like each other and they don't want to be in business together. So that's why I conclude that she must have sold for less to this stranger than Brad was willing to do it. And so she went ahead and sold, and Brad sued over it and saying, look, this is wrong. And so this is the litigation that's going on that we're going to be talking about right now.
And so now, as that's all happening, thank you for that update. He's saying this was a conflict of interest. You sold to you're violating the contractual rights without his knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. They're all debating that. But now comes up this question that he demanded she sign a non-disclosure agreement that would have contractually prohibited her from speaking outside of court about Pitt's physical and emotional abuse of her and her 3 children. Now this is coming up. It's all over the press. I saw it this past week of these allegations resurfacing again. We all knew of the plane incident, but now she's saying there was more. What is the timing of this? Why does it bother you?
This is just bizarre. If you stick with me here, because it's a little bit complicated, but here's what's going on. So Brad makes this offer saying, hey, Angelina, I want to buy your half, here's my offer. And apparently she was okay with that, or at least he thought he was. And so then he proposes a standard terms. Like, here's the contract. And part of that would have included a non-disparagement clause, or NDA, saying, hey, we're not going to talk bad about each other. That's a standard term. And now she rejected it, sold to this other person. And when that happened, and this goes back several years, she didn't say anything about the NDA that he had proposed as being the reason for her rejection of his offer. She said, look, I got an offer from him, but I didn't like it, and I decided to sell to somebody else. That was within my rights. That's what she said. She never said at that time that it was because he wanted to silence her.
Right.
Okay? So she is now seizing on the fact that he had proposed a standard term in the contract to sell as her now stated reason for rejecting his offer. And the reason why she's doing that is because in this civil suit, it's a dispute over this winery, she wants to now bring up abuse allegations from before the plane incident, meaning before 2016. How would that possibly be relevant if there was abuse or not abuse with respect to her ability to sell or not sell the winery? There's no logical connection there. She's introducing that by saying, oh, I did agree, or maybe in principle, to sell to Brad, but when I saw that he wanted to silence me, he wanted to keep me from talking about these ancient allegations that she had never made before. That's why I rejected it, Judge. And now that you know my reason for objecting to that sale, then now let me just go put in a publicly filed court document all these allegations that I've never made before, even though they would have been highly relevant in 2016 to make. I'm making them now. So it's a pretext. That's what we call it in the law. So it's an excuse used to bring forth irrelevant information to attack somebody, and that's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, it's really scary, guys. She's just unloaded all this, and she didn't do it during the custody dispute, which is when it would have been, obviously, as Christopher says, relevant. She's dragging this out. She's moving the goalposts, as we would say, Christopher, to sort of seemingly stretch this out. When's it gonna end? And so Brad hasn't really helped himself. He has tried to be the better man by not engaging and not really reacting. But now he is starting to. It seems like his team is starting to finally see we can't. This woman's evil. This woman's not backing down. She's trying to destroy me. It's time to start going forward. He's now even saying it through sources that she's just dragging all this up to distract in the Vineyard War. Again, this is just spiteful in your mind. You think she's doing this because she's still angry about the divorce, whatever personal reasons, or do you think there's a business move here regarding the vineyard?
No, I mean, it's to me, it's she's a broken person, honestly. I hate to say this, because I don't want to criticize people, but to continue to perpetuate all of this dispute, to bring forth these allegations, even if they're true, pre-2016, 8 years ago, why would you drudge that up in a dispute over whether she had the legal right to sell this or not? It's irrelevant. And as Brad pointed out, he made a comment that she was being hypocritical because she had herself proposed a non-disclosure agreement, similar terms, okay? So it's like, why is it okay for her to propose an agreement to him that they not disparage each other, but all of a sudden his proposal of the same standard language is all of a sudden trying to silence her? So again, when I put all this together, And again, I don't want to be critical of her, but it's just like I just can't accept that this case would go on, these disputes would go on, and I can't also reconcile her own statements. Okay, I wasn't on the plane, I wasn't in the relationship, I don't know what happened. All this, I am judging her based on her own statements. The fact that she didn't mention the NDA before and now is bringing it up. The fact that she's making these abuse allegations from 8 years ago that have nothing to do with this. The fact that she also stated in these papers that I didn't want Brad prosecuted from that plane thing. You know, the FBI investigated it because it happened on a plane. She says,
We have it right here. Yeah.
There you go.
So she's saying here, oh, well, throughout all, Jolie never pressed charges. She believed the best course was for Pitt to accept responsibility and help the family recover from the post-traumatic stress he caused. Again, no mention of all the previous abuse, etc. before that. But meanwhile, she was revealed to be the one who actually sued the FBI and made all that happen. So the hypocriticalness is even next level beyond just the NDA, no?
That's where it is. It's like I say, I'm looking at her own statements. So right now, in that thing you highlighted, that's a recent court filing. So she's saying like, oh, I didn't want him prosecuted. I wanted him to heal. I wanted him to move forward. That's false. When the U.S. Attorney's Office refused to file criminal charges against Brad Pitt after this thing was investigated by the FBI, she sued the FBI. She was so upset at the FBI for not charging. She wanted to get all their investigative documents to be able to distribute to us, just saying like, oh, this was a cover-up. They took Brad's side. You see, I'm the victim. And when that didn't work, now she's saying, oh, I never wanted him prosecuted. And again, it's like these are her own statements that are irreconcilable.
Yeah, it's weird because, again, the summary for me is just how sad this is given the kids. And I saw recently, to wrap this up, the latest that one of the daughters, Vivienne, apparently half the kids are supportive of Brad and want to have a relationship. There's a couple that don't. But the latest is that apparently Angelina's daughter, one of them, doesn't matter which kid, leave the kids alone, but has expressed she wants to move in with Brad despite the lawsuits accusing of this. When I see something like this, Christopher, it only cements my take, which is, oh my God, Angelina, stop. It's the kid's father. Let them make the choice. You've put the information out there. They clearly know how to use the internet. I'm sure it's getting to them. She's clearly talked about it if she's doing so many public battles. At this point, your children are still choosing to have a life with him. Move the hell on. And I ask you this too, like People Magazine, I take this a little bit better. Usually celebrities leak their sources to people like People. It's more reputable. So when it says exclusive sources are talking about Brad Pitt trying to move on with his life, the drama used to get to him, especially the custody, but the source says it's been very stressful for him to have to defend over and over again, but things don't seem to change. He's trying to move on with his life. Do you suspect that is finally his team trying to get the word out as subtly as possible?
Yeah, I mean, this is really difficult, and because he has, Brad has been quiet this whole time, all right, and there's now apparent leaking, by his side. He hasn't made any statements really. There's some stuff in the court papers, but mostly he just like move forward, keep his head down. When the plane incident happened, even though he denied, doing anything, he said, "Fine, I'll go to counseling." He subjected himself or agreed to, monitored visitation, basically having a security guard present for you to see your kids. What message does that send to your kids that your parent is so dangerous that you can't be safe with them? But he's just like, "Hey, I'll go with the program," and none of it was enough. And so he's been, I think, honorable in the way that he is not going to litigate this in the press. He's trying to move forward, trying to heal, keep his kids out of it, but it just doesn't stop. It never does. And Angelina has, a pretty big PR apparatus, and she has a lot of fans and supporters. And so it's like, oh, okay, hey, she's alleging something, and then people believe it because they haven't necessarily looked through and critically examined things. And she's playing the part of a victim.
I'm curious,
over and over again. But it's at the expense.
Sorry to interrupt,
kids.
but yeah, for the sake of the kids. But I'm just curious from your experience as someone who's had celebrity clients. You're a big divorce lawyer, and the client doesn't want to speak to the press, wants to do what Brad Pitt's doing. There are still methods you guys pursue to get a source quote out, correct? I mean, it isn't unfair of me to assume that this could be from Brad Pitt's team. No?
Well, sure. So there's authorized leaks, that'll happen. So at least there's no kind of direct fingerprints on it that can be used against the person in court. Sometimes they're just, like the press will, or that if they're not careful in vetting their sources, will put in stuff that really does not have a basis for it. Those are more of the rags that'll do that kind of stuff. But there's rarely, during litigation that people will go out and make a statement or a press release. They don't have to because there's a court action pending and they use those filings as their press release. That thing that we were looking at before from Angelina Jolie, that was filed in a court case and it's basically her press release. Oh, let me say all this, have my lawyer say all this kind of stuff because then the press picks it up. Oh, it's just in a court case. So this is essentially a press release filed in court so that she could get these headlines to saying, oh, Brad Pitt is an abusive person. Well, again, it's like, I don't know. I wasn't there. Okay. So I'm not a fact witness, but I'm just looking at this critically. If Brad Pitt was an abusive person, as she claims, where are the other women making these allegations? There's not one girlfriend who's come forward and said that. And obviously people have an incentive to do it and jump on the wagon. We see this all the time. One person gets into trouble, all the other people come out of the woodwork. Oh yeah, he did it to me too. Not one person. So, I mean, how do you reconcile that?
I don't know. It's you look, when you get bothered by someone, I know you mean it because you are a lawyer out there that actually tries to do good for the sake of families. I've learned that about you. Like, you want the best for the family, especially when kids are involved. You brought up a name in comparison of another crazy woman out there. Like, you feel strongly about this. You think Angelina is completely in the wrong. Final thoughts. What should people be known of and be warned of and follow after hearing this video to keep the truth on this case moving forward?
Yeah, my thought is like, I don't want to take sides, and I just take sides of the truth, okay? And it's hard, we see the headlines and, we don't read the article or we don't go and read the actual court documents and critically examine them. So, one thing is just like, obviously we can't believe everything that we read. We got to critically examine it. Number two is just that some people can't let go. And even if something happened on that plane, come on, it's 8 years ago, move forward. And then also putting kids first. That's what parents do or should do. But here it seems to me that she's putting herself, her own interests, her own desire to be a victim ahead of the needs of her kids.
Well said. So I guess what you guys can do is you can share this video when you see the debate going out there online about Angelina and Brad. We're Team Brad on this one. I stand with Brad on this. I do. When Christopher lays it all out like that in my own homework and research, it's real. And Christopher not only is a good person, but he's got that experience. So I listen when he talks like this. So thank you, Christopher, for coming here. Great topic. Sad story. I hope the kids are doing okay and just can get through this already. Move on already, lady. You can follow Christopher at CA_divorce. Well said. Thank you for being here. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that join if you want to support, or hit our Patreon. Leave your comments down below. What do you think on this? Are you surprised? Let us know your thoughts down below and stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet.